Kia ora and welcome back. This is chapter 19 and we're going to, in chapter 19, talk about creativity. There's an assumption that some people are creative. And George Land did this fantastic piece of work some years ago around looking at creativity, and he chose 1,500 people to actually look at them through life and see what happens to their creativity as they get older. When they first start out, their creativity was right up there, like almost 100% of these people actually were successfully creative. But over time, that dropped off dramatically. Now that almost 100% of people that were creative were 4 years old. So when we're born, we're innately creative. This notion that some people are creative and some people are not is a nonsense. Basically what happens is we're educated out of being creative because we have to get the right answer in schools. And as schools we need to reconfigure that, because now we don't just want 20% of people being creative, we need at least 80% of people being creative. And creativity is incredibly fulfilling. It's one of those wonderful things when you come up with a fantastic metaphor. You know, people like Shakespeare wrote beautiful works around metaphor, and he came up with beautiful metaphors that really were stunning. And that's why we celebrate him as an amazing author, because creating metaphor like that and bringing two discordant things together and making them make sense is an amazing capacity. So when we talk about creativity, there is no one out there, whether you're listening to this, watching this, reading this, there's no one out there that's not creative. Everybody has degrees of creativity, and that's based on their experiences, confidence, mindset. So creativity is about actually taking all the elements we've talked about so far in this learning process, okay, our emotions and feelings included, and taking those and our knowledge, ideas and concept frameworks, and looking for connections between those in our mind. Each of those items, that knowledge elements, those ideas, concepts and concept frameworks, each produce a particular brainwave profile. And two areas of our brain, the hippocampus and the amygdala, do an amazing job of actually looking for connections between those things. Now here's the big deal. The big deal here is that you cannot actually do that unless you're daydreaming or not thinking about anything at all, which is our definition of daydreaming. Daydreaming must be encouraged. We must encourage it. We must provide spaces where kids can go and daydream. If you want them to be creative, we must give them those spaces. Because in order to actually see the interference of those brain waves and the productive interference of those brain waves, you can't be thinking of anything else. So when it comes to creativity, creativity is a process that makes use of our imagination. Our imagination is the ability in our mind to merge things together, and to do that in a way, shape and form that if we had to think about it, would be incredibly complex. But we can just do it. We are the only species that can be creative, because we're the only species that can actually form ideas and concepts. We're the only species that can rearrange those ideas, concepts, and to actually be creative. And so creativity is something that is innate in all of us, and we need to encourage it throughout the schooling experience. Which means our obsession with getting the right answer, which can be achieved with my phone. So if I want to solve a maths question, all I've got to do is get the PhotoMath app up on my phone, photograph the equation, it will give me the answer and all the working out. When are we going to start letting children, learners, bring in those devices into their tests, into their exams? Because we used to ban calculators, and now we think that was a silly idea. There was a time when we actually banned biros because pen and ink was the standard. Back before then, we banned compasses for drawing circles because maths teachers said for some reason kids need to be able to actually draw freehand circles of any diameter. You know, each of those has looked ridiculous when we look back at it. But right now, we're banning phones from classrooms, and for lots of justifiable reasons. But eventually we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that school must represent the community we're coming from. And in our communities, we have phones with us all the time. And we need to allow them to use photomath to get the right answer. What they can't do on photomath and what they can't do with the internet, etc., is understand what that means. What does that answer actually mean? And this is why we've gone back to, or moving towards a curriculum that is focused on conceptual understanding. Because that is what we do equitably and was also what we do really, really well. So let's amplify the positive rather than amplify the negative. We've got to recalibrate our thinking around, we've got to change our habits of education and habits of teaching, and actually step back and reconfigure what the 21st century is all about when it comes to schools. We've then got to go into our communities and start talking them through the changes, because they will struggle with it as much as you struggle with it. And then we've got to talk to our governments, because they're going to struggle with it as well. So it is a tear-down process, but this notion of creativity, the ability to take all the resource we've got in our headspace and reconfigure that in different combinations, looking for possible outcomes. And your brain does that in an extraordinarily short amount of time. Absolutely amazing where our creative ideas come from and how quickly they come. But we have to allow them to be in a state of daydreaming. We have to do that. That's an important thing. So go and have a look at the chapter in the book, chapter 19, looking at creativity. Have a read through of that, watch the videos, etc. that are linked in there as well. And then we're going to come back and we're going to start looking at the next stage in the learning process, and that is how do we take that creativity and turn it into new ideas, new concepts, new frameworks, and also how we actually then take that and create products, systems, environments, and media. Thank you very much.